Hi folks, just catching up with a friend Sarah who's come across from interstate, and she's in Adelaide for a little while, and we're just near Belair National Park, and she spotted a few herbs and plants growing around the place, which she knows a little bit about and uses herself for herbal medicine. So just thought it'd be a great opportunity to just to hear a little bit about that, and I'm really curious and thought you guys might want to check it out. So, hey Sarah.
Hey Matt.
So yeah, you pointed out the hawthorn before. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, like what it's used for, and what you would do to prepare it, I guess, to be used?
Well, I was really excited to spot her because I haven't seen hawthorn in full bloom, and she just kind of like drew me over. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is her. And then coming up close, we were able to tell straight away from the particular leaf, as you described, like a serrated leaf. So I was like, yes, it's her. She's in just perfect bloom at the moment, and she's just like such a like a significant mother tree in herbal medicine and in many herbalist gardens. The particular use for her, or the particular medicine that she holds, is particularly around the heart, and so could be physical heart and also emotional heart. So I like to harvest with permission some of her flowers if I'm really lucky to come across her when she's in full bloom like this. And as we were saying before, like just drying them on some paper. And then come autumn, when she's covered in like the crimson berries, I come back and harvest some of those berries for making teas and herbal medicine. So that was such a treat to stumble across. Yeah.
And so Sarah, once they're dried out, so you put them on some brown paper and leave it to dry for a few weeks, possibly a month, just to get them really dry. Then to use it as a tea, how would you use that?
Just like we'd use any loose leaf tea, like a big heaped teaspoon per cup, though like these will be like clusters of dried flowers, so I'd probably use like 2 little clusters per person, or 3, like whatever feels right.
And so if you're feeling a bit flat or something like that, you might is that what you sort of, when you say heart and emotions, is that what you're talking about? That you might have that and as just a way to smooth out the emotions, that sort of
and
you're talking about?
It can be more than just like a kind of a physical action of smoothing out emotions. It can be like a kind of a connection with the plant energy of holding. So it can be, there's so much going on in the world at the moment. There's a lot of heartache and grief and loss, on a personal level and on a collective level. And just as we've evolved with plants, like they can really be an ally for us and a support for us. In a really beautiful and gentle way. And there's something so beautiful about having this living interaction, as opposed to, for me anyway, to just like buying something in a plastic bag off the shelf on the internet. It's like, oh, I've met you, and I come, with gratitude, or I might make an offering in exchange for this beautiful gift that we can receive from her. And that sort of feels like you've got the nature connection, you've got right relationship happening, and tapping into something that is so much more ancient than buying something off the internet.
For sure.
Like just meeting her is like a beautiful tree with all this medicine.
And then when we were talking to Claire recently, Claire Dunn, she was talking about that awareness of the seasons, and that is a way of tuning into the wild, and so I guess you doing being on the lookout for when things are in flower, and
Yeah.
that is another attunement, I guess, of
Yeah.
being connected with the seasons and what's going on.
Yeah, so like I'd make a note to remember, like, like first week of October, that big tree
Yeah.
outside Belair National Park,
Yeah.
down by the creek, and in my mind, like it's a whole year to wait. It's like
Wow.
a movement away of that, from that instantaneous like gratification. It's
Yeah.
like, if I miss it this year, like I got to wait another year before I can come back and harvest again.
Yeah.
Or like, what a treat to look forward to October next year.
Wow.
And come and receive a little more medicine for the following year.
Yeah.
And not taking more than I need, or my family or friends need.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a real practical question, do you jot those notes down and have a bit of a diary of where, or it's just it is a mental thing that you just store it away? And okay.
I mean, maybe it depends on the individual, but we didn't used to rely so much on like writing things down. There was that interconnected sort of knowledge of seasons, like early spring brings hawthorn and whatever fishes, and the birds come and the wattle comes out.
Yeah, you just start to tune into it, and you have the sense that it's coming, and you just know that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's me. I don't know if that's true for everyone.
It's not for me. I tend to rely on writing things down, but I do now and then just go for a more intuitive, like for example public speaking, try and make that more from the heart, and when I do, it's much more powerful. So I mean, it's a bit of a different sort of scenario, but I can relate to the fact that we have got these strengths to remember and follow our intuition more, I think, than I allow myself to. So, yeah.
And our the Indigenous people and our Indigenous ancestors would definitely have been, like, it would have been seeped or steeped in them.
Stories,
passing on stories, and you know, maybe you walked with grandma or grandpa into the forest at this time, and it's just kind of like steeped in you.
Yeah, all the memories. Yeah. Well, what else is about the place, Sarah, that you?
So much. So, as you know, I did spot the wild rose over here. And again, it's so interesting. There's heart medicine, the wild rose here as well. So, like, that's a lovely tea with rose and hawthorn together, and it might not taste super delicious, but it's sort of working on like a physical and energetic level as well. And again, that beautiful relationship of harvesting, drying, and then steeping it. It's memories. And then when I was here, I spotted some cleavers or sticky weed. So it's just like, once you start looking, there's so much.
Now, I see this in my yard quite a lot, and I've never realised that it has it can be herbal medicine. So it's very sticky, and often when I'm weeding, it'll
it just kind of
stick to.
It's always fun to throw these at each other.
So what would you use that for?
Well, this tends to come out in springtime. So after winter, where we've had like a lot of stagnancy in our system, we've got all these herbs that come up that are good for cleansing stagnancy and getting things moving. And sticky weed is one of those. I believe it's helpful for clearing the lymphatic system, and there's what is it, like a doctrine of signatures with plants that people talk about, that their actions are represented by a physical component or mirrored. So like I was thinking of the walnut. The walnut looks like a brain, and it's supposed to be good for the brain. And so this one, like the stickiness, the Velcro is sort of indicates that it'll like drag through and stick and cleanse through the lymphatic system. So it can also help us to remember the uses.
Yeah.
So how I would use this is I would pick a few sprigs of this and then steep it for 5-10 minutes to make a tea.
Yeah.
And I quite like it actually. It's like it's not bitter, it's maybe slightly savoury, but not in a salty way. But it's, as we were saying before, you kind of like your body will say yes, more of that, or no, or whatever your body needs at the time. Yeah. So it's a kind. When I drink this, my body's going like, more of that. Yeah, that's good.
I have a friend who has put me on to the coconut water kefir.
Oh yeah.
And the first time I had that, the smell and the taste, it was a bit sort of but then it's similar thing to what you're talking about, that I feel it helps with my gut and my well-being, and now I crave it. It's interesting, even though that initially when I had it the taste wasn't very nice, my body's saying yes, it's time to have some of that. So it's curious. I will give that one a try, and the sticky weed a try, and see see what the response is.
And it reminds me, when I spent some time in Japan, that I'd be following around some of the older people, and they'd go through the forest and they'd be picking out all kinds of fern fronds and plants, and they'd be slimy, or they'd be bitter, and things that most Australians would find
unappealing.
And there's a phrase in Japanese that's like "karada ni ii," which means healthy for the body. Yeah. So they wouldn't mind what they ate, but they'd eat it with relish, like, it feels healthy for my body. Yeah. And maybe they're tuned into that, maybe we can learn to tune into that too.
Yeah. And you noticed plantain before as well, which I
Here we go.
I've it grows very commonly found around the place.
Yeah. And this one's easy to identify because it's got all these ribs on the back of the leaf, and you won't find that with like some people like, I'm not sure about dandelion and other things, but the ribs on the back are a really easy identifying feature. Sometimes you can get more rounder leaves and longer leaves. Yeah. This one also makes a lovely tea.
Okay.
But my favourite use for it, apart from that, is making what we call a spit poultice. And just hoping no one's poisoned this or no dog's peed on it. So
something to be aware of.
If you're harvesting herbs, like being mindful about where you harvest them from. But, so what you could do is, if you have an insect bite, you could chew that up into a ball. So maybe I won't do that now.
Yeah.
Chew it up with some saliva, and then put that on the insect bite, and it's really cooling and soothing. And it like draws the sting and the heat out of that.
Yep.
And it grows quite commonly around. So that's great to have on hand as like a natural insect. Yeah. Soothing, instead of buying stingos in a plastic bottle, and you've supported pharmaceuticals and etc. You've got like these natural stingos.
Wow. So and you said as a tea you might use that as well?
Yeah. It makes a lovely tea. I forget what kind of
properties it has. Okay.
As a tea, but it tastes nice as well.
Okay. And so where have you talked about learning from the people in Japan, the old people in Japan, but where else have you got your knowledge from around herbs and their uses?
Gosh. I was super lucky. I got to do an apprenticeship with a herbalist in America who's considered the grandmother of herbalism, Rosemary Gladstar. Yeah. And I got to live on her property for a few months, and she has a big herbal garden, and so it was like a work exchange apprenticeship. So she'd teach us, and then we go work in her garden, which is all full of herbs. And then it was just amazing. So that really kind of set me on my course. Yeah. But I've always had a connection with plants. I've always loved plants, and this was just like another level of learning and connecting and understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the rhythm of your time, normally living back in Melbourne in the city, that rhythm of going out harvesting and using herbs, is it a daily, a weekly, or a monthly, or how?
Daily, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like when I go for my daily walk, I like to kind of, I think of it like I felt sad when I left the forest in America, because I could go and harvest things, and I'm like, I'm in an urban area, so there's not going to be a grove of hawthorn. But I learned that there's a kind of an urban version of that where you kind of do a mental mapping. It's like 3 blocks away there's a bay leaf tree hanging over the fence, and 2 blocks west there's a rosemary bush, on the footpath, and so I can forage a little of this and a little of that, and know like, oh, in springtime 5 minutes away there's a linden tree. And so that's a way to connect in with our landscape and be in reciprocity with the plants, and sort of foraging in a modern urban version of that. And there's that sort of interconnectedness that we won't get if we just buy it at a supermarket.
Wow, you've really thank you. You've given me some real food for thought, because I like most people, I whip down the chemist and get some stuff. And the thing I've always known about herbalism and thought, it'd be good to know some things. And I do use herbs, as I was saying to you, when I have a cold, I put a few rosemary and thyme and sage and lemon balm in a cup and hot water, and I find that quite invigorating. But besides that, I haven't got into it. But the thing that really strikes a chord for me is you talking about that reciprocity and the connection, the deeper connection with the world around us through having this knowledge of these plants and respectfully harvesting and using them, and getting it's not just a physical medicinal benefit. There's a much deeper benefit that you're talking about. So,
totally. And there's another piece I'd like to add to that is that we are what we eat, and when we take in things that are grown in the wild, they've grown here because they're resilient, and they've got a sort of they haven't been pampered and cosseted and sort of factory farmed, and there's something about ingesting something that has found its way through and has its own like resilience and
vibrancy is another word I'm imagining,
and vitality. And so when we ingest that, we become what we take in. Thoughts, water, food, medicine. So if we're talking about rewilding, then part of ingesting is one way to
bring in more wild into our lives. Wow. That's great food for thought. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're so welcome.
Really appreciate the time.
Pleasure.
Cheers.